Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of May 27th, 2020. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Josh Whitehead serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Whitehead, may I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Claybrook.
Here.
Ms. Doss.
Present.
Mr. Jackson. I'll come back. Mr. Malazri.
Here.
Vice Chair Savage Towns.
Present.
Ms. Skurlock.
Here.
Mr. Chairman.
Here.
And Mr. Jackson.
Here.
Thank you. We have a full complement, Mr. Chairman.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests as articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I would like to swear in the staff. You may all remain seated and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, being moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by, or ask, is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving last month's minutes meetings signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide us a secretary's report if we have one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I won't make as long of a presentation as I did last month, but I do want to just remind everyone in the audience that we will be streaming our PowerPoints and the meeting live on YouTube. We have, I think, 47 subscribers at this point. If, according to the YouTube's rules and bylaws, if we get up to 100 subscribers, they will allow us to have a more tailored URL or address. So if the board members would like to become subscribers, we can get up to 100 subscribers, and that would make our public notices a little easier because right now there's a lot of squigglies and letters and numbers. So if we had a easier to remember YouTube channel, it would just make things easier for people to participate in the meetings. With that, Mr. Chairman, the agenda is also available online. So if the board members or the other participants would like to look at the staff reports, which are obviously more conclusive than the PowerPoints, that is an option. Those staff reports and that agenda is on the Board of Adjustment's homepage. If you Google Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment, there's a quick link at the top that goes to most recent agenda. With that, I'll go to my regular script, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the procedure, we will conduct this meeting just as we would as a regular in-person board meeting. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are on the board's website and on the YouTube website. For each case, staff with the Office of Planning and Development will give a presentation containing site plans, photographs, and maps of the subject property. At the conclusion of this presentation, the applicant will present his or her case. And then that will be followed by supporters. The applicant and the supporters will have a cumulative amount of 10 minutes to provide their case. That will be followed by speakers who have registered their wishes to speak in opposition. Finally, and that also will be a 10-minute time period. Finally, we'll go back to the applicant for a 2-minute rebuttal time. These times do not include Q&A time between board members and the speakers, and the chairman may provide additional time to both sides, provide both sides are given the equal amount of additional time. Once we hear all the testimony from both sides, the board will then close the public hearing, deliberate, and vote on the matter. If after that time the board wishes to reopen the public hearing for additional testimony, a 2/3 vote is required, and under our rules of procedure, we then hear from both sides of the situation for, again, an equal amount of time. All motions made by this board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing this board require the affirmative vote of at least 5 members, regardless of the number of board members present. All section numbers that we refer to this afternoon come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, which was adopted by the City Council and the County Commission in 2010. I will introduce the entire UDC to make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections. This body is vested with the power to act on these cases before it under Chapter 922 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this public hearing, and all other mailed notice requirements have been fulfilled according to the UDC.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the Secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the staff, board member, or those that are on the line, I guess everybody who's already in wants to hear the case have told us so. Wishes to hear the case, they should have done so already, except for the board who can tell now. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on each of those cases.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? Mary Baker.
Yes,
Hello?
I think Mr. Chairman may have either been bumped off the meeting or has muted himself. So we'll fix that, but I can hear you.
Can I just ask a question? I'm just making sure. The screen I'm seeing is a static picture of apartment buildings. Is that what I should be seeing right now?
Yes, and then when we go through the hearings, we should have the PowerPoints streamed.
Making sure. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, have you been bounced off? Well, while we get you back on, I think what you are going to do is hand the floor over to me to go through the consent calendar based upon comments we've received both from the applicants and from potential opposition. So we will skip the 2 held cases because we're going to have hearings on those, agenda items numbers 1 and 2, and go straight to agenda item number 3, which is docket BOA 2034. That's a correspondence case, which is a modification to docket BOA 7029, located at 4183 Summer Avenue. That's the southeast corner of Summer and Western. The applicant is TPB Real Estate. The use district is the R6 Residential Single Family District, and the request, again, is a modification to an earlier site plan approved by this body in 1970. That brings us to agenda item number 4. That's docket BOA 2035, located at the southeast corner of Airways and Holmes. The applicant is TPA Group, represented by Bradley Kabar. The use district is the CMU3 Commercial District, and the request is a use variance from Section 252 to allow an accessory use, a parking lot, serving a proposed principal use on an adjacent lot, which would be a warehouse. Agenda item number 5, which is docket BOA 2036. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman and board members. On agenda item number 4, we had a request from the applicant. This would be a friendly amendment. If you want to right-click on this staff report and follow with me, the conditions are listed on page 21 of that staff report. Again, this is agenda item number 4. The condition is rather lengthy, but we have worked a friendly amendment that at the end of that sentence, at the end of those 3 sentences, a new sentence be added stating the requirement to install sidewalks along East Holmes Road shall become null and void if the adjacent EMP portion of the site, comma, where the warehouse is proposed to be located, comma, is exempt from installing sidewalks. The UDC contains some thresholds on when and where sidewalks are installed. So they have asked that that be breathed into this case as a revised condition number 2. Now, that brings us to agenda item number 5, which is docket BOA 2036, located in the county at 1643 Quinn Road. The applicant is Spencer Nix. The use district is the CA Conservation Agricultural District. The request is a variance from section 10.5.2 to allow the construction of a home on an exempt tract of less than 4 acres in size that does not have city water. That brings us to agenda item number 6, which is docket BOA 2037, located at 2798 New Brunswick. The applicant is St. Charles Place LLC, represented by Wesley Wooldridge and owned by Charles Boone. The use district is the CMU3 Commercial Mixed Use District, and the request is a variance from paragraph 4.9.8A4 to allow the accessory use of a parking lot of parking on a lot that contains the principal use of an on-premise advertising sign. Agenda item number, yes, ma'am.
Mary Baker. I would like to pull that off consent, number 6.
Okay. That'll bring us to number 7. That is docket BOA 2039, located at 352 Grandview. The applicant is E.J. Cox. The use district is the R10 Residential Single Family District. The request is a variance from paragraph 272D1 to allow an accessory dwelling unit that exceeds the permitted size. Agenda item number 8, which is docket BOA 2040, located at 1518 West Crestwood. The applicant is Hawaiian Pools and Landscape. The use district is the R10 Residential Single Family District, and the request is a variance from section 276 to allow a swimming pool to encroach into a platted front yard setback. And finally, agenda item number 9, which is docket BOA 2041, located at 2004 Windcliff Drive. The applicant is Bell Properties LLC. The use district is the CA Conservation Agricultural District, and the request is a variance pursuant to subsection 329F to allow a side yard encroachment of, correction here, 8.2 feet into the platted side yard setback of 25 feet. And as indicated in my correction on the caption, there's also a correction in the conditions of this item, Mr. Chairman, and that regards that 18.9 feet. It should read 8.2 feet. I think actually it originally read, it was supposed to read 8.19 feet. We're going to round that up, give the applicant an extra 1/100th of a foot. And the new condition number 1 will read, the variance is hereby approved pursuant to subsection 329F to allow a side yard encroachment of 8.2 feet, replacing 18.9. With that, Mr. Chairman, to summarize, that gives us agenda items 3, 4 as amended, 5, 7, 8, and 9 as amended. And Mr. Chairman, are you back on the phone?
I am.
Oh, good.
Sorry, I'm not sure what happened. Fizzled on my end.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Somebody say
Vice
something?
Chairman Madeline. This is
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Chair Savage Town. On number 5 with Caryville, I will have to recuse myself.
Okay. And we can note that in the on the consent calendar. So Savage Towns recuses on 5.
Okay, well, I will also recuse on 5.
Okay. Anybody else want to recuse on 5? Okay, we're good then.
Okay. All right, so then do we have a motion from the board to approve the consent agenda as established by the secretary, which was approval of item 3, item 4 is amended, item 5, item 7, item 8, and item 9 is amended. Move. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, being moved and seconded, I would like to remind the board that by voting on the consent agenda, he or she affirms that he or she has read the staff report in full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Ms. Doss,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Malazri,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns with recusal amendment number 5.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met. It will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And let's see, Ms. Scurlock,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman with the recusal on number 5.
Yes.
That's 8 ayes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So if you are on the line for cases 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, or 9, you've been approved as conditioned by staff or amended or in accordance with amendments we just talked about. Thank you for joining us today, and we will move on. And Mr. Secretary, if you will call the first case on the regular agenda.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That brings us to the top of the agenda, which is a case that was held from last month. This is docket BOA 20-21, located at 4212 Elvis Presley Boulevard. The applicant is Octapharma Plasma, Inc. The use district is the CMU 3 Commercial Mixed Use District, and the requests are a conditional use permit for a blood plasma donation center and variances from 433, 453B, and 455D4.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is the applicant on the line with us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I am unmuting him now. Mr. Bix, you're on.
Oh, hello. Yeah, this is Nathan
Hey,
Bix,
okay.
Birch, Porter, and Johnson, 130 North Court, on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, very good. We're going to, and then, Mr. Secretary, is Mr. Belinky the opposition with us?
Not yet, but let's go ahead and assume that he will be joining us.
Okay.
Land Use Control Board, he was very good at listening to the meeting on YouTube and then calling in at the
Gotcha.
appropriate time. So.
Okay, that sounds perfect. Okay, then, Ms. Smith, if you'll give us a staff report of this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Summer Smith with the Office of Planning and Development. As Mr. Whitehead previously stated, this case was held by the board last month in order for the applicant to work on improving the site plan. So if you follow along in the staff report, you'll find the location map on page 3, and you'll find that the site is located in the Whitehaven neighborhood. Page 4 is the recorded subdivision plat. The parcel is lot 1 of the Marlin Pace subdivision, originally recorded in 2001 and re-recorded in 2015. On page 7, you'll find an aerial photograph that shows the site's proximity to other medical uses. It's adjacent to a physical therapy business and a dialysis center, and less than 1,000 feet from Methodist South Hospital. On page 8, you'll find the zoning map, and you'll find that the site and all adjacent parcels are zoned commercial mixed use 3. On the next page, you'll see the land use map, which excuse me, shows that the site is located in the Elvis Presley commercial corridor surrounded by commercial uses. On pages 10 through 22, you'll find site photos. The first photo on page 10 shows that shows the primary entrance to the subject structure built as a pharmacy. The rest of the photos show the structure from different viewpoints as well as the neighboring sites and streets. On page 23, here's a survey of the site. And on 24, you'll find the site plan. And if you want to compare the proposed site plan on this page against the survey on the previous page, you'll see the many, many improvements planned for this site. You'll also see a note on this page for a list of all improvements that staff and the applicant have agreed on. Some of them include, but are not limited to, the improvement of land along Elvis Presley in accordance with the city's planned Elvis Presley Boulevard improvements, the addition of streetscaping along both Elvis Presley and Marlin, the addition of several parking area landscape islands, the closure of the non-conforming northwestern curb cut, and the replacement of the non-conforming detached sign. On page 25, you'll find the landscape plan. We'll see that the proposed streetscape and landscaping, and that the site plan and landscaping plan taken together show the existing site moving largely towards UDC compliance. On page 7, you can see a typical section of the Elvis Presley Boulevard project. The applicant will dedicate and improve streetscaping along Elvis Presley in accordance with this project. On 28, you'll find some additional sign restrictions. Staff recommends conditional restrictions on the permitted signage to avoid the type of promotional signage often associated with the proposed use, as seen on these photographs. And in conclusion, the conclusion is listed on page 30. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a blood plasma donation center at 4212 Elvis Presley in Whitehaven. The vacant structure was built as a pharmacy. The site is in an area characterized by medical uses. It is adjacent to a dialysis center and a physical therapy business, and is within 1,000 feet of Southern Methodist Hospital and additional medical facilities. For those reasons, the proposed use is in character with its vicinity and meets the conditional use permit criteria. The applicant is additionally requesting 3 variances related to streetscaping and parking. Staff finds that these variances are warranted due to site constraints associated with the existing structure and asphalt, and may be granted without undue detriment to the neighborhood or the intent of the code. The applicant is planning significant upgrades to the site streetscaping and parking area landscape. So therefore, on page 31, you'll find staff's recommendation of approval with conditions. The site plan found in the staff report will be the final site plan if this application is approved. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Smith. Are there any questions for Ms. Smith from the board? Hearing none, Mr. Bix, would you like to add anything to what Ms. Smith just presented for us?
Yes, very briefly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say that Octapharma Plasma is a pharmaceutical company that's a European company that's headquartered in the United States in Charlotte, North Carolina, and has over 85 facilities. They collect plasma, which is then used to develop pharmaceuticals to treat diseases. Perhaps you read a lot about plasma donations in fighting the coronavirus situation now. I think it's important that the board know what we've done since we asked for the continuance last month, and there are 2 things I'd like to bring to your attention. One is that we've worked really hard with the staff to address concerns about the constraints of this site, and I think we presented a really good plan that will take a blighted piece of property where the client, Octapharma, plans to spend $2.4 million and create between 40 and 50 new jobs, pump $3 to $5 million into the local economy. The second thing is, in addition to working with the staff and addressing a lot of concerns that they raised, and I'm appreciative of their efforts to work with us. But most importantly, I just wanted to say that before the last setting, we learned of opposition from 2 people who wrote letters to the board to object to the application, and I want you to know that we reached out to both of those people, one of whom was City Council person Patrice Robinson, who represents this district, and we had a long, very detailed conversation with Ms. Robinson about our proposal, and I think we addressed all of her concerns. She was very concerned about this type of business, and when I explained to her that this is a highly regulated business and that there's no cash involved and people who come there have to pass a health screening before they're permitted to donate plasma, I think that addressed some of her concerns. She also directed us to other people in the neighborhood who we contacted with and explained our proposal to, and we received their approval of our proposal because they know that this current location is blighted with the police are called frequently to run, my vernacular is vagrants off of the property. And so the infusion of capital and the creation of a vibrant business there is something they viewed as an asset. And the second thing is we reached out to the neighborhood association represented by Dr. Nelson, and we contacted them and offered to meet with them and to address their concerns. But Dr. Nelson informed us that she didn't have time to communicate with us or to work with us. So we tried. So I think it's fair to say that we made an effort to address the concerns of both the staff and the neighborhood, and we're pleased to be able to invest money into the Whitehaven community. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions, and I'd like to reserve the balance of my time for whatever Mr. Blinky has to offer. Thank you.
Okay, you reserved 7 minutes. That gives you 9 minutes of rebuttal. Are there any questions right now for Mr. Bix? Hearing none. Mr. Whitehead, is Mr. Belinky on the line with us yet?
No, sir.
What do our official rules say about this, Mr. Whitehead?
Well, I think we would treat this
You
just
have to
like,
be present to win.
well,
Right.
I think we would treat it just like an in-person meeting. So if someone's, we go to the next phase of the meeting.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I just wanted to make sure before I did that. So here, being that we have no opposition present, I guess there's no need for Mr. Bix to make a rebuttal unless you have some sort of closing, do you?
No, sir. I'm happy to answer questions if there are any.
Okay. Are there any questions of the applicant? Hearing none, I assume that y'all are ready to discuss. So could we get a motion to approve agenda item or BOA 20-21 as conditioned by staff?
John Jackson, so moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Jackson. Is there a second? Second. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? I think Ms. Smith did a good job of kind of telling us what they've done, and I think Mr. Bix did a good job of kind of telling us what this business was. I don't have any questions at this time unless someone else does. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Gerlach,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns,
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met. It will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Mr. Malazri,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Ms. Doss,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Ms. Baker,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
8 ayes.
All right, you have been approved. Thank you for coming down, Mr. Bix. All right, Mr. Whitehead, will you call our next case?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And on this case, I can confirm we have our supporter, our applicant, and our opposer. So
Okay, very good.
we're all set for this one. Agenda item number 2, which is docket BOA 2032, located at 4599 Mill Branch. The applicant is Modicem Itium. The use district is the CMU3 Commercial District, and the variances are from sections 252, 271J, 272A1, 272A2, and other sections to allow, among other things, container buildings to be used as fencing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Since you've already said we have all of our parties present, Ms. Smith, will you give us a staff report on this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Summer Smith at the Office of Planning and Development. If you guys will follow along with your staff report for this one as well. On page 3, you'll find the location map. This site is located in Whitehaven on Mill Branch Road, north of Shelby Drive. On page 4 is the recorded subdivision. The site consists of Lot 16 and part of Lot 15 of Watson and Manley's first addition to Watson subdivision. Page 6 are 2 aerials. The first one is zoomed in and the second one is zoomed out. The zoomed photograph matches the approximate boundaries of the subject site. On page 7 is a zoning map. zoning map. The site and its immediate vicinity are zoned commercial mixed-use 3. On the next page, we'll find the land use map. The site's located in a commercial corridor and is directly adjacent to residential uses to the west. On pages 9 through 18, you'll see site photos. On page 9, we'll see the front facade of the primary structure built in the 1970s. On page 10, you'll see an alternate view. The next page, we take a deeper look at the illegal shipping containers that currently line the site on both its side and rear. Here we see the shipping containers along the site's northern property line. On the next page, we see the shipping containers along the site's southern property line. Next page, shipping containers along the site's western property line. And this view is from the adjacent residential property. Next page is an alternate view of shipping containers from the residential property. And then following that is a view of the adjacent residential property itself. On page 16, we see existing non-conforming signage and storage. Page 17 is the view down Mill Branch facing north, and page 18 is the view down Mill Branch facing south. On page 19, you'll find the site plan. It proposes to reorganize existing shipping containers in a more linear fashion. And then in conclusion, on page 22, the applicant is requesting bulk and use variances from 8 provisions of Article 2 of the Unified Development Code in order to receive building permits for existing illegal shipping containers used as accessory storage sheds and perimeter security for a vehicle service business. The applicant has painted the shipping containers since requesting a hole at the April board meeting. Staff finds that there is no unusual or extraordinary characteristic associated with this property that justifies the requested variances per UDC section 9.2.6. If approved, the requested variances would have an undue adverse impact on the site's vicinity, particularly the residential property to the site's west. Alternative methods of storage and perimeter screening that comply with the Unified Development Code are available at this property. So on page 33, you'll find staff's recommendation of rejection, although if approved, staff does recommend 2 conditions, which we'll find there. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Are there any questions for Ms. Smith at this time?
I have a question, Mary Baker. Ms. Smith, how would a shipping container be approved in CMU 3? Is there any other route for approving a shipping container? Or is this
shipping containers are only allowed as accessory uses in industrial zoning districts.
Altogether, there's no other way to do it?
Not to my knowledge. Mr. Whitehead might know something else, but not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
I was on mute. I'm sorry. I muted myself. These commercial zoning districts do allow for single-family residences, and the UDC does allow for shipping container homes to be approved through the conditional use permit process. So the only other way a shipping container could be approved in this zoning district is if it was a house made out of shipping containers.
Okay, got it.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, if we can unmute Ms. Reeves and have her give her name and address for the record.
Hello.
Hey, Ms. Reeves.
Hey, how are you? Cindy Reeves, SR Consulting, 5909 Shelby Oaks Drive, Suite 200.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and tell us what you'd like to. You have 10 minutes. Actually, well, we have 5 minutes because we have, and then we can move to support and figure out what to do next.
I have Moxie, the owner, and J.D. Stinson with the fire department also want to speak in support.
Okay.
Do you need to swear them in now?
We'll swear him in when we talk to him.
Okay. Okay. As I stated at the last meeting, security is the main reason he decided to use the storage containers, and he's worked very hard to clean up his building, make it safe while working with the fire inspector. The adjacent Mill Creek apartment is unfortunately one of the most dangerous apartment communities in Memphis. You can Google it, and it's very, very clear that it's a dangerous area. Monty's been in business here since 2009. He purchased the building in 2011. He has a yearly inspection to obtain his tire business permit each year and has passed it every year. In 2014, he was cited, and they said that he was grandfathered in, and he worked with Ted Elsley at Code Enforcement, and they said that the shipping containers were grandfathered. He has since added more shipping containers, which is, I think, why he was cited again. And after realizing that he couldn't secure his property, the idea of the shipping containers became the best way that he could make his property safe and meet all the conditions that the tire business permit requires you to make. And those requirements are also in your staff report. On page 29 of your report are recent photos, but unfortunately it didn't include the recent photo of the front and all the changes that he's done while working with the fire inspector, who will also address the board. I would like to say that page 11 is city-owned property. That is not his debris. Page 13 and 14, what you're seeing there belongs to the apartments. It does not belong to him. He has a very clean site. The aerials that you saw were old aerials, and that is not what his site looks like today. He has made great progress to be a very nice-looking business that has thrived in that area for many years. And we feel that if we cannot get this, then we would put somebody out of business. We've got to find a way, hopefully, that we can get this approved. The fence that is behind him and the apartments gets cut daily, and they climb through the fence. He cannot secure his site with a fence. So I'm going to let Inspector J.D. Stinson be the next speaker so that we could have a little bit of time for rebuttal.
Okay, very good. Mr. Stinson?
Yes, sir.
Okay, will you give your name and address for the record for us?
Yes, James Stinson, 120 Holyrood Cove, Mumford, Tennessee, 38058.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and tell us what you'd like to say.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, board members, hello. My name is Inspector Stinson. I'm with Fire Prevention here in the city of Memphis. I'm newly assigned to review cases for the Board of Adjustments. And after reviewing this case, my initial comments were pertaining to the use of the Connex containers in the capacity of outdoor storage. And since my initial comments, conferring with my colleagues, we've determined that the storage of tires within those Connex containers they're considered structures and not considered outdoor storage. The outdoor storage of tires presents problems for the fire department. For one, because once they get started, tires are very hard to put out. They're very hard to extinguish. And the byproducts of burning tires is also, the smoke and the stuff that gets leached into the ground is very hazardous. So when the fire department looks at outdoor storage of tires, it's all about protecting that area against unauthorized entry. We don't want anybody into that area to be able to set a fire. And under those conditions, those Connex containers provide more than adequate security to prevent unauthorized entry. And I will say I've been working with the owner ever since I reviewed the first set. He invited me out to the property, and we've been working to arrange his outdoor storage of tires within those Connex containers. He's reduced over half of his volume of tires. They're stacked neatly, and the place looks a lot better than it did the first time I viewed the property.
And I believe that the Connex containers provide more than adequate protection, more than any other fence I could imagine. But that's all I have to say.
Okay. Well, thank you, Inspector Stinson. Are there any questions from the board for Inspector Stinson? All right, hearing none, we appreciate your input, sir. Ms. Reeves, who would you like to speak next?
Actually, I'm going to save the rest of my time for rebuttal. What I would like to point out is the conditions that are on page 23. If this does get approved, we cannot meet those conditions. It basically says that he has to meet all the general development standards of the Unified Development Code, and he can't meet all of them. That's the reason that we're here before the board is that he cannot meet them. So I would like to save the rest of my time for rebuttal, please.
Well, okay, so how would we need to, what would the conditions need to say? I just want to make sure I'm on the same page on the, I'm looking at page 23, and I see condition 2 you were talking about. You would just say we need to strike condition 2 because it just doesn't fit with the fact we're given a variance? Is that...
Well, that is correct. I mean, we need to, we'll give him a site plan that shows all the improvements that he's done with he had his containers that were not straight in the line. We could give him a revised site plan that shows the containers the way that they are today. But as far as moving illegal fence or outdoor storage shall be removed. I mean, it's a tire store, and tire stores have to have somewhere to store their tires, and he's worked very hard with Inspector JD, as the inspector has said, and he feels that he has a very safe and secure site and has a very long-term thriving business here, and he would hate to have to find somewhere else to open up a tire store. This is his whole life. So.
Okay, understood. Ms. Smith, I'd like to go back to you or any other staff I kind of understand what Ms. Reeves is talking about. If we approve it, but then have those conditions, it seems like we're then disapproving it. Is that correct? Or are we reading too much into what you meant by those conditions?
Well, I believe what staff meant that anything not approved by the board today, if in addition to the container buildings, if there was, I believe there's a vehicle on the lot that was non-conforming signage, that's what it acted as, but that would have to go. The storage buildings would be allowed to remain as approved by the board today and as submitted on a final site plan for staff to review, but anything else outside of the realm that's being approved today in regards to outdoor storage, signs, or fences shall be removed. So today, if you all vote to approve the container buildings, then those would be permitted, but anything outside of that would have to be removed.
Okay.
Right. This is Joy Doss, including the fence. The fence will need to be removed as well?
On the western side of the property, is that what you're referring to?
Mm-hmm.
If it is not permitted, and if it doesn't meet the UDC requirements, then that would have to be removed because it would basically be a fence around a fence.
I didn't hear the last part because the last part of that was what?
I didn't hear it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so there would be a wire fence, a chain link fence, basically fencing in the container building, which is acting as a security fence. So if that does not meet the standards of the UDC, then it would have to be removed, the chain link fence along the western property boundary.
So, okay, and I had another question.
Go ahead,
I have another question as well. So just to be clear, the primary concern outside of the storage and the signage is the fire safety one of the primary concerns as well, because if we at least can eliminate that concern.
Correct. That concern was brought up initially by the fire inspector, and so since that's been retracted, we can move past that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Okay, I
address
wanna-
the fence?
Yeah, please do. I have some questions about that, but maybe you can explain them before I have to ask them.
Yeah, the fence on the west belongs to the Mill Creek Apartments, and it's the whole chain link fence surrounds the apartments with multiple holes in it where people keep coming through the fence in order to get to Mill Branch. That's where they've broken into many of the businesses in the surrounding area, including the liquor store next door. You've got an abandoned building to the south, and the fence it belongs to the apartments. It does not belong to him. If it did belong to him, he would have cleaned it up, but it's not on his property.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to clarify, if the fence is not on his property, then he would not be responsible for removing it.
Okay, that makes sense. And then let me ask one more question about when I'm looking at the site plan, Ms. Reeves, that you submitted with the straightened out trailers on the southern side or containers. I'm not seeing any containers. Like I see them on the north side and I see them on the south side. What do we have on our property that would go along that fence besides that overhang? Is there structure there as well? Like see-through structure? Does that make sense?
Aluminum siding is along the back, and that's what covers the tires that are inside the shipping containers.
Okay, so you have the overhang with metal roof or whatever, and then there's siding in the back. Okay, all right, that's what I just didn't see it on the site plan, so I was trying to figure out what it was back there.
Yeah, and they keep cutting the siding on the back also. They keep cutting through that. So he's still challenged with some of the
Right.
the apartments does help them from cutting the siding fence that he has installed over his metal awning.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine that aluminum siding is a lot easier to cut through than one of these shipping containers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
There's no debris site on his property.
Okay. Okay. So, just so you know, Ms. Reeves, when we started discussing, you had 5 minutes left, and then you have 2 minutes on top of that for rebuttal. So you're reserving 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And then, are there any other questions of Ms. Reeves right now?
Mr. Chairman, Mary Baker. Also a question for Ms. Reeves. I'm confused looking at this site plan, and it's the one that proposes to reorganize existing shipping containers in a more linear fashion. North, I assume this is oriented so that north is up and south is down, and because I'm looking at that, I don't see any shipping containers along the west side. Are they not going to be there under this new plan?
No, the new plan. Go ahead, Ms. Reeves. Sorry.
North and south side, you also have 2 additional containers that abut the side of the building, the way that we've got them drawn. There's a metal fence with the awning that also covers the tires.
But what is along the west property line in the way of a barrier?
His metal fence, 5 feet, and then you have the apartment's property and their chain link fence.
Okay, so in that photo that you had shipping containers along that edge, right? And that's where you were talking about in that photo on page, I think it's 16, you were saying that that area between the shipping containers and the fence actually belonged to the apartments. And that's that edge, right? And with this site, the containers have been taken away from that edge. Is that right? Am I looking at that right?
You are looking at, what you're looking at is the City of Memphis' street on page 13. You're looking at the City of Memphis' street. You're looking at the chain link fence. You're looking at the end northern container, and then it starts as metal siding. So you have two end containers on that western end, and then you have and the
it's
apartment.
Just not much that's shown in this photograph, right?
The photos were not exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And did not, of course, get the photo that was included of the front of his building and the improvements that he's made there.
Is that really a City of Memphis street, or I thought that was
Yes,
a
that is yes, ma'am. That's a City of Memphis street. It used to go to the apartments, and because of the crime, they tried to keep them contained. So yes, ma'am. It would be nice if the city would clean it.
Got it.
Okay, any other questions of Ms. Reeves before we move to the opposition? All right, hearing none, Mr. Whitehead, is the opposition still on the line with us?
Yes, sir. And Dr.
Okay,
Nelson is ready to go.
Dr. Nelson, if you'll give your name and address for the record, I'll swear you in before we start.
My name is Dr. Yvonne D. Nelson. My address is 3519 McCorkle Road.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead. You're ready to go.
Before I forget, I was supposed to speak on the first case as well as the second today. So I'm very shocked that I was again left out. On this case, I wasn't given the information to call in initially. And I think this is not the way things should be happening. But as far as this case is concerned, the most notorious apartments in Whitehaven, unfortunately, Mill Creek might be at the top, but I think you're referring to Hillcrest, which is miles in a different direction. This is not good. I'm looking at the signatures, and what are these people who were coming to have tires repairs? There are people from all over Memphis on that list. So, yeah, I come to get my tire repaired. Yeah, I'll sign your petition, sure. But you're saying that these are people in your neighborhood. Your neighborhood is not Hickory Hill. It's Whitehaven. And then there were some that were even in other areas, even further away. I think it is a fire hazard to have those shipping containers there. I agree with the fact that the gentleman who's been assigned to this area is becoming familiar with it, and we're very happy to have him on board. But I think you're overlooking the fact that there would be no way to stop that if it were to start burning. It could be very detrimental to the whole entire area, and there are lots of children and adults living in those apartments. I really don't think that you can meet any conditions with these shipping containers, and to hear that if someone is using one as a house, it's okay, is totally unbelievable. So I can go get a shipping container, buy a lot, and sit it out there and turn it into my house, is what I'm hearing you say. I don't know about being grandfathered in 2014. I would have thought that the law would have prevented that recently. This is a prime street in Whitehaven. And yeah, we understand that there's a lot of vacant property, but why are we rushing to fill it? What's the urgency? And in this case, I think he's done a marvelous job in painting from the pictures. The last time I went through there, it had not been painted. But if you look at the aerial, and that aerial that I'm speaking of is your page 6, all you're doing is covering up a hot mess. And it's just a matter of time before something's going to spark in there. We just had a fire in a residential area at 48 Solutions, the former ILCO. The sky was lit up at midnight, and we were scared for our lives. I don't want to see that at that apartment complex because that street is closed, and maybe someone should make the city aware of that fact and have them clean it up. I think this is an injustice to this community. And I'll reserve the rest of my time, but I would like to say that Mr. Belinsky had a previous engagement, and I do believe last week he told me he knew he wouldn't be available to speak at number 1, but way back in March, I said by email that I would be. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Nelson, you said you were going to reserve your time, but there's no place to, there's no rebuttal after this. So I just want to make sure, there's nothing to reserve it for, if you have something else to say.
So how much, I understand, do I have more time?
Yes, ma'am, you have 5 minutes and 22 seconds.
Well, I'd like to start at the beginning and come back through then, and I'm sure you'll let me know when I've run out of time. This is, and I'm looking for more clarification on if this is approved with conditions. You're being told in advance that the conditions will not be met. Maybe this gentleman should move to the old Big Star across the street and work up some kind of deal there so that he would have an interior place to store his tires and not have to put everybody's life at risk using these shipping containers the way he's using them. I just don't understand how you all can be going back and forth and almost agreeing to say, well, okay, if we approve it with the conditions and you can't meet the conditions, that's okay, we'll approve it anyway. I'm having trouble understanding that, so I'd like some clarification, and I know there's a rebuttal coming back. I'm going to go back to the signatures again. Those signatures were from all over the place, and I agree that sometimes that's okay, because I myself have been guilty of that. It doesn't matter where you live. It matters what you wanted in your backyard or your front yard. But if these are just people who are coming by to get a tire repaired, and they don't give a hoot about the community, for them to lie and say, I do not feel as if these containers present any type of negative look or affect the appearance of our neighborhood, maybe we need to swear them in to saying that they're being truthful. If it's not their neighborhood, White Station is not Whitehaven. So anybody can go get signatures, but do these signatures actually mean what the petition says? Again, I cannot stop with the fire hazard. What's the fire truck going to do? Ram the shipping container, wait and go get some massive equipment to move it? If there's a fire in there, they're going to need to get in there pretty quickly to get it out. And yes, I agree, tires do cause all kinds of problems when they burn. And if the fire department cannot get to them, because of these metal shipping containers. Those things have got to be heavy because of what they're designed for, railroad cars. I think he's got a great idea, but he's got the wrong location. And I'm sympathetic because we want businesses. I've thought about stopping there before because we have potholes. Potholes makes tires bust and lose air, and we want businesses in our community. We're not fussing about the business. We're fussing about the way he's conducting business. And I understand he's concerned about his product safety and security, and I'm trying to be compassionate with that. But what about the safety of the humans around there? And how much, going back to that picture again, how many vermins are living around in there, scuttling around when the place is closed? I just can't believe that we're actually having this discussion today. I just don't see how you can do this, and even with the conditions, I don't understand why we're even doing this today. And I'm terribly upset because I had good things for the pharmaceutical company, not bad. But I have questions that now I may never get answered, and I didn't tell him I didn't have time, and I resented that. I didn't get to say that to that gentleman. I did not tell him. I did. He wants to make it seem like I wasn't interested. I'm very interested with what goes on in my community, and that was not fair. So if I have any more minutes left, I understand that they're now dead and gone, and so am I. My voice is silent. Just want to say thank you all for the opportunity to represent people who won't represent themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Are there any questions for Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Move back. So go ahead.
Dr. Nelson, have you had any conversations with the people there at the apartment complex or the management or the owners? Have you directly spoke with them about this?
No, not about this. And I knew the manager over there when it was Ledick property, but no, I have not. I didn't feel the need to go getting them involved. I don't even know if they know. No, that's a definite no. I did not go and talk to them to try to get them on the bandwagon to be against it. No, I did not do that. I don't want to see businesses leave my area. I want to see businesses come and grow, and I just want them to be part of the area and function within the restrictions that the area has already had set.
Last question I have for you, Dr. Nelson, is do you know of any objection from any of the residences in the apartment complexes or the management itself?
I have not spoken with them. I cannot answer that question. The people that I have spoken to about this represent neighborhood associations in that area, and I will say that they were definitely in objection, but I don't see that they're here to speak that today. I don't see that Dr. McGee is available to take time out from his practice to speak his piece today. So I'm at peace with this, but no, I did not go to the apartment complex. Not one time have I driven up in there for this purpose. No.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Nelson? All right, hearing none, thank you, Dr. Nelson, for joining us today. Ms. Reeves, would you like to, you have 7 minutes of rebuttal.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. He owns this property. He's not leasing the property. So moving across the street is not an option for him. I'm not sure where that would have been relevant. The signatures that are on the petition were from customers and neighbors. He went around to the neighbors and had neighbors sign the petition also. I am going to let Inspector Stinson talk about the fire hazards that she made comments on. and about the issue of this being a hot mess. There are no rodents or animals on site. There's nothing to eat on site. And Monty is a part of the community too, and he's taken great pride in cleaning up his site, working with the fire inspector, and being a very nice looking business on Mill Branch Road. The containers, and Mr. Inspector Stinson will be able to address to this, but the fires will be contained in the containers. So if there is a fire, so it's safer by the fires being contained in the containers. But I'm going to let Inspector Stinson address that with some of my rebuttal, please.
Okay, very good. Inspector Stinson?
Yes, sir. As far as the outdoor storage of tires versus them being in containers, it's actually safer for them to be in containers. Simply for that reason, that if a fire were to break out in that area of tires within those containers, that would be confined. Now, again, tires are hard to catch on fire. They're not easily ignitable, but the danger is in once they get ignited, they're very hard to put out. So, protecting that area is a primary concern, and I believe that the owner of this property has done a very good job of protecting it with those containers. It's a little unconventional, but he's protecting it nonetheless, and he's reduced the capacity of tires within that area, within that courtyard. There was quite a few tires on my first inspection. He's reduced them by more than half, and they're neatly organized. They're separated from the containers themselves and the back property line and the main structure. So, as a security measure, I believe it's more than adequate. And the tires being in the containers would be preferable to being out in the open.
Okay. Any other comments from Mr. or Inspector Stinson or Ms. Reeves?
I have a question. This is Joy Doss. I wanted to know, are the storage containers, are they fireproof?
No, ma'am. They're constructed all of. Yeah, they're non-combustible construction. It's all steel construction.
Okay.
Fireproof? No, they're not. They would resist quite a bit of fire before they started before they were compromised.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Reeves, any other comments? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, Mary Baker. I have a question for either Inspector Simpson or Cindy Reeves.
Okay.
Whichever. These tires that are being stored, are these new tires or used tires, or tires that they took off of a vehicle and they're storing?
They're both new and used. They sell both tires.
Are most of them new or are most of them used?
The majority of most of them are new.
The majority are what?
Most of them are new.
Are new?
Most of them are new.
I mean,
y'all lose me?
I can still hear you, Cindy. They're new tires. Miss Baker?
Yes.
Did you have any further questions?
Well, I'm just asking that question because, tire storage and accumulation it's just an issue all over the city. We're encountering it constantly in some of the neighborhoods that we work with, and I've just often wondered. I mean, what does like a Firestone business? Where do they store their tires? I mean, I'm just wondering why he needs that much storage. I guess that's my question.
Firestone on them, they're illegal. They can't hold on to tires.
Firestone stores their tires inside. Inspector Stinson, can you say if that's safer than these storage containers?
Well, the requirement for indoor storage of tires a lot of times involves, sprinkling the building, offering, fire suppression within the building. There's a certain amount of tires allowed within a structure before you have to sprinkle the building, but again, there's fire protection with indoor storage as well as better security with them stored indoors. Outdoor storage of tires, that as far as the fire code is concerned, it's mainly deals with fire department access and securing against unauthorized entry and separation from other structures.
I have a question. This is Vice Chair Savage Towns. What are the tires currently being held in?
In the storage containers.
Okay. What were they
Mr.
prior
Chairman?
to the storage container?
They were outside prior to the storage.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did somebody else say something?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Summer Smith, OPD.
Yes, Ms. Smith.
I have a question for either Mr. Whitehead or Mr. Simpson.
Okay.
Considering that Firestone Tires stores their tires inside and they have additional regulations they have to follow, such as how many tires can be stored, and then the distance that they are from other structures, would a container building, a shipping container used as an accessory structure not classify as indoor storage and be, I guess, have to go by the same requirements of spacing out and sprinklers and number of tires allowed to be stored at one time?
I believe I can try to answer that without the code book in front of me. I'm not exactly sure the dimensions of tires stored indoors before requiring a sprinkler system, but I don't believe those containers are large enough to exceed the quantities of tires that would have required a suppression system. As far as separation distance, I mean the containers are on the north and south. They're on the property line, so you get into one of those areas where my initial comments, I viewed them as outdoor storage of tires, and then you get into, are they far enough away from property lines and other structures? But after speaking with some of my colleagues, we're looking at these Connex containers are consistently being utilized as structures themselves, then we're considering them as indoor storage.
And what about fire access? If there is a fire in one of them, would the fire department be able to access the individual storage containers?
Yes, they would have to. I believe on that property, the way to that courtyard is through the building. Now, the code requires outdoor storage of tires over an area over 20,000 square feet to be provided with at least a 6-foot fence and a 20-foot gate for fire department access. Now, if you look at the aerial photographs on the plans, that yard is not big enough for a fire truck. So that kind of negates the requirement for the 20-foot gate access. And he's reduced his outdoor storage of tires below 20,000 square feet. So the actual requirement for that outdoor storage of tires in his particular situation would not even require secured perimeter. So his secured perimeter is, above and beyond what would be required for the amount of tires he's got stored out in the open.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And can I address also that the property line to the north is city right of way. So there's a lot of separation between him and the building. The property line to the south is a car wash that he also owns, and there's a lot of separation between those two buildings. And if you go to the west, it's about 500 feet to the first apartment building from his containers.
Okay, other questions for the applicant?
Yes, Ms. Reeves, this is JT Malazri. How many containers are on site right now?
9.
And does your proposed site plan plan to keep all 9?
Yes, sir. Major improvements by painting them, straightening them up, and working with Inspector Stinson to make them much more presentable along the exterior.
But the proposed plan doesn't call to add any additional containers.
No, sir, we're not adding any additional containers.
Okay. Thank you.
The containers that you see in that field have been there for years. And then see the pictures the 2 pictures, not the front, but 2 side pictures. You can see that he's straightened them up and he's done a nice job painting them. And that would be
Mr. Chairman, Mary Baker. I just have to ask one more question about this, just because I don't know the answer. Would he just keep storing tires that he takes off of vehicles, until all the containers are full? And then, what happens? Are any tires ever sent anywhere else to be recycled or whatever? I just don't know what happens to them, and what is the end result of this?
We can answer that. I'm going to let you swear in Motsy,
Okay.
so that he can rate that the way they are stored is safe, and he's worked with the inspector to make sure of that. And it's not all, it's new and used tires. It's not just a complete, there's walking room where you can walk and find your tires, your inventory. So I'll let him explain. Get sworn in first, please.
Okay. Sir, if you can give your name and address for the record.
Motessa Maitayim, 4599 Mill Branch Road.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So to restate Ms. Baker's question, I think the question that she has is, once a tire has, a used tire comes off a car that is not resellable, how do you dispose of those tires?
No, it's not resellable. What it is, with the tires that come off the cars, they either go with the customer or place a fee of $5, and it goes to the tire disposal, which I have a tire disposal account on Elvis Presley where we dispose of tires. I don't hold tires old bad tires in the containers.
Sure.
There's 13 different sizes of tires. So if you have a 13-inch tire, you have 13 sizes of 13-inch tires. You have 14s, you have about 10 more sizes of 14s, 15s, and so on until you reach 30. So that's why you need so much storage, for every size has over 10 sizes within that size.
And you have to be able to see the inventory. So there is a walkway. You don't just cram the storage containers full of tires.
The storage containers are not crammed with tires. On each wall, no more than 6 foot tall, and you walk through it. It's not just tires thrown in there. It's actually organized, probably better than a lot of people's places. My shop gets painted every 2 years ago. I paint my shop. Yes, I had a little mess, but I cleaned it up and everything, and just got out of hand. That's why I needed 9 containers. Either I tried a chain link fence, they cut that. They cut through my fence and the apartment's fence. I tried the wooden fence there. They broke that and cut through the chain link fence to get back to my shop. I see no other way I could secure my shop. I've been there since 2009. I don't know how else to consider my shop to secure it. My shop feeds 4 families. I have an abandoned building in front of me to save a lot. I have an abandoned building on the right of me. Abandoned buildings are up and down that street. My shop looks very nice compared to a lot of these other tire shops, and very clean. Looks ugly from that aerial picture, But if you look at it from the outside, it's very clean and everything's abandoned around me. My business, if I go out of business, you're putting 5 families out of business. You're putting another abandoned building on the street. If anybody's familiar with Mill Branch and Shelby Drive, you know what I'm talking about. I don't think that big of an issue, and I talked to a concern about the fire hazard. And answer somebody's question earlier about the fire, the container will be contained the fire, so don't reach out.
Okay, I have a question for Cindy or the applicant. When looking at the site plan that's on page 19, I only count 7 containers, so I'm just trying to see where the other 2 are. I got 2 that are going east-west along the north line, 2 that are end-to-end, heading north-south, and then there's 3 on the southern line. I'm just trying to figure out where the other 2 are.
There's only 8.
I'm sorry, 8.
Okay.
And where did I, on my site plan, is that?
This right here.
Okay. Oh, okay. There's 2 containers on the northern end.
8.
There's
8.
There's 8.
One's beside another one. That's why you can't see it. It looks as one back here in the corner.
Yeah. At the northwest corner, that's 2 more containers. So there's 8. So my site plan missed that last container.
Not 9.
Also.
Okay.
Well, you can't. That's the thing.
But we will definitely have the correct number, and it will be a maximum of 8. He does not need any additional containers.
Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Are there any other questions?
Monty would like saying about the apartments to the west and his relationship with them.
Okay, me and the liquor store and the laundromat, we all came together and we went back there to talk to the management of the apartments. And because, people cutting the fence behind our places and broken the liquor store, I don't know how many times. I had some videos of people walking through the fence going shopping. And when we speak to the Hill Creek apartments, they always tell us, well, we're going to fix it. And I actually have video of a lot of the fixing when all they do is cut it in another way. And they kept on saying that they're under new management. So they quit fixing the fence. So if you go across that fence, you will see holes in that fence, up and down that fence. They fix a hole, they put another hole right next to it, fix that hole, and now they just ain't fixing the holes no more. And, they just breaking in the back of our shops, the liquor store, the laundromat, my shop. I mean, I don't know how else to secure this. I don't want to go out of business. This is all I have.
Okay.
That will conclude our presentation. We appreciate the time that y'all have taken in order to listen to this. I know it's an extremely confusing case, and I think he's been very creative in trying to contain his site and make it secure, safe, and we appreciate your consideration and hope that we can get this approved.
Okay. Let's see. I think that what I want to move back to maybe before we kind of stop all discussion with the applicant is talking about the conditions. And so, Cindy, I guess, how would you, I think that I think you're probably okay with the signage and any fence on your property, because there's no fence on your property, you say, but outdoor storage that is not contained on the final site plan is approved by staff, does that help?
All of the outdoor storage is inside the containers.
What's underneath the metal awning in the back on the western side? Is that storage?
It's my trailers.
What?
I park my trailers on
Oh, the trailer that he takes the tires that he has to haul off.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, we're not storing really tires there. We're just storing those trailers to be able to move them.
Yes,
I
sir.
just want to make sure if we approve it, that the conditions don't bite us on how we do
Right.
it.
And it's, we definitely will do we can make the signs conforming, but as far as, fence, there is no fence.
Sure, so we won't worry about that. I think that's fine.
It's not, is. And the outdoor storage is contained inside the containers. You do have some display of tires on the front of his store, but we wouldn't hope that you would make us take those away.
Those go in and out.
And those go in and out at night. So they're
Right.
just display.
Yeah, just like Firestone does, they have the stack of tires out there.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Mr.
question,
Whitehead?
John Jackson.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
I want to make sure, Ms. Reeves, I understood what you and the gentleman said, that the shed area that is not storage containers only houses his trailer. That's a lot of shed for just a trailer. Help me understand that, please.
He has 3 16-foot trailers and how many work trucks?
3 work.
And 3 work trucks. So there's,
I used to park them in the front of.
he used to park them in the front of the shop, and then they started breaking into them. So he put them behind the shop under the awning.
So that overhead shed stores 3 trailers and all of his vehicles.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Mr. Whitehead, so given kind of the way they say the business is working, do you foresee a problem with these conditions matching up to what work is currently being done there?
Well, I do see there's a disconnect between what the applicant is requesting and the way these conditions are worded. Is that your question?
I guess, yeah, I think it is. I guess I'm trying to figure out to make sure if like this, I want to make sure that if the board ends up being okay with the way it's been described to us, do these conditions then take us to a place we don't understand that we're going?
Right.
And I guess I'm asking you to read my mind, maybe. I'm trying to just be able to figure out, if we say these conditions are good, what else does he need to change? How about that? That's my question.
I'm sorry. Can you dumb that down just a couple shades?
I will promise that. So
Okay.
if we were to approve as conditioned by staff, what do you foresee at the property also changing that has not already changed or doesn't match up with how he says the property is being used?
Okay, I got
do
you.
we lose the outdoor storage of vehicles? Is there other stuff going on that like maybe we don't intend?
Well, focusing on condition number 2, the UDC requires a landscape screen associated with the buffer to outdoor storage. So that right there would require a perhaps somewhat drastically different site plan to be submitted administratively.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
That
And then that goes to Ms. Reeves' comment.
And you're talking about that would be on the north and south side of the properties, or the property.
Right. I think what maybe your mind is thinking is the condition 2 should say a revised site landscape plan shall be submitted that demonstrates additional landscape improvements on the property to be reviewed and approved administratively. That takes out that requirement that it meets the the jots and tittles of the Unified
Of the
Development Code.
Okay.
Ms.
Ms. Reeves, does that make sense to you?
Exactly where am I having to put landscaping? Because I've got storage containers going to each property line. And I've got two fences, the apartment's fence and our metal fence in the rear. So I'm really not sure what kind of landscaping that
Right here,
I would need.
this grass right.
So I'm looking again at the site plan on page 16. It looks to me that the property line is, you know, a good 15, 20 feet south of those containers. Is that not accurate?
That's not, that, I think he's talking about this. This is the property. That's what you're talking
Page
about.
19 of staff.
I just made it there because I was planning on putting the awning there for customers to sit down. I just made it where I own more than that property there.
Can you landscape that area?
Sure, on the side of the building. I have landscaping in front of the window with the flowers, but there ain't no flowers right now.
Okay. He can landscape in front of the building.
Yeah, they
There's
told me to do that in front of my office window.
in front of his office window, and then
Right.
he can landscape on the northern side, adjacent to the street right-of-way curb.
And going to the overhead.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, John Jackson.
Yeah, yes, please, John.
I don't think we need to determine where he can landscape at this point. I think what we need to do is to give OPD and its staff and its administrator the flexibility to create a site plan with them working with the applicant to create a site plan that allows opportunities to do basically two things. One, achieve the objective that he's trying to do, and number two, provide some form of screening where screening can be obtained within a reasonable aspect of discussion between the two parties. So trying to define that now, I don't think is possible with the site plan that we have.
Okay, I think that's a very good point, John. Any other comments before we move to discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Portia.
Portia?
Oh, I was wanting to at least add that they paint the shipping containers along the north and the south. Well, the south is mostly the same color, but if they could paint, since it's serving as a screen, that it, you know, looks more unified as a screen.
I think that's been done.
Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah, I think if you go further down to the newest pictures, the north and south side of paint, and they match the building with the stripe that's on the building, so it just looks like one kind of congruent thing. But it's way down, page 29.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you.
Did someone else have a comment? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Summer Smith. I'm in contact with the staff planner on this case, Mr. Brett Davis, and he just wants to make sure that the removal of the sign and the fact that no outdoor display adjacent to the sidewalk is allowed at this location, and for that to be considered in the conditions as well.
Okay, so pulling it up. So, like, if we're, Ms. Smith, if we're looking on page 17, where he has the tires, like you see often places, we don't want them all the way to the sidewalk, is what you're saying.
Correct. He referenced section 4.8 for the display. Trying to pull that up now. But basically, they're not allowed along the sidewalk at all, and then the truck with the sign has to be removed.
Okay. Very good. And that would be that would go under the staff part about, would that be part of your condition about non-conforming signs? Would that take care of both those?
Correct.
Or okay.
Can you repeat what?
So,
They want to get rid of the non-conforming signs. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Smith. You do a better job than I do.
the vehicle with the signage on it that is displayed at the front of the Y on Mill Branch has to be removed, as well as the storage along the sidewalk is not allowed.
Where would
I'm sorry,
he,
the display along the sidewalk.
where would he park his truck? That's what he actually used to go service somebody.
Ms. Reeves, I'm sorry, it's John Jackson. I thought you said he kept all of his vehicles stored in the back.
That truck is the one truck that's too tall to go back there. He's got actually two trucks next to his building. The other truck beside the building are just
My doors are a lot taller than 10 foot.
the doors are all in these two trucks.
I have
fit
some of them
inside.
electronically too, if they're not there.
And as far as the display on the sidewalk, that is not an issue. He can,
So those trucks are usable. I mean, like those are. It's not a broken down truck that's sitting there with painting on the side. It's a
no,
work truck.
no, sir. It's not a broken down truck with painting on, with the sign on. No, absolutely. Though he uses those trucks.
On page 16 of the staff report, there's a photo of the truck. And it does not appear to have a license plate.
It's registered.
It's registered and it does have a license plate.
I can't leave license plate on it because
He can't leave the license plate on it whenever it's parked because they steal it. So he takes, when he takes the,
sticker.
Okay.
They steal the stickers off the license
he can show the staff the
Yeah,
license
no, I understand that. Yeah.
They steal the stickers.
They steal the stickers if they don't
off
steal the plate.
Mr. Whitehead, if that's a usable truck that they actually move around for business, would it still be considered a sign?
I'm on mute. No, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Any other comments before we move to discussion on this? If so, could I get a...
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, and it may be a way to enforce it from just the site plan, but I do want to spell out that there will be no additional containers if we move forward with this added to the property.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the number of containers is now, it's 8 containers. It's not 9.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully request that to be added as part of the conditions, or either that or be required as part of the conditions.
Then let's talk about that when we get to discussion. And we'll carve that into a condition, I think, JT.
So
Agreed.
there are, just to clarify, there are no illegal signs. The sign out front, he pays a sign inspection fee every year. And I guess what the staff member was thinking was an illegal sign was his utility vehicle. And so
Correct. So the only issue would be that the storage, the daily use of the tires as advertisement out front.
The tires out front will not be on the sidewalk. They'll be up against
Correct.
the building, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Similar to what Firestone and all the rest of the tire companies do.
Sure. Any other thoughts or comments before we move to discussion? then I'm going to see if someone would like to make a motion to approve this case as conditioned by staff with a new condition 3 added, that no more than 8 shipping containers be used or allowed on site. And then, and Mr. Whitehead, could you tell us your condition 2 as you sort of stated it to us before? You added just a little bit of extra language that made it seem a little better.
Yes, sir, and I have jotted down a revised condition 1 as well. So
Okay.
a revised condition number 2 would read, a revised site/landscape plan shall be submitted to the Office of Planning and Development, period. What we've done is we've removed the requirement that it adhere to the UDC. And number 1, a revised condition would read, all storage within close proximity of the sidewalk shall be removed, period.
Okay, very good. Then at this point, I'd like to see if someone would give us a motion with the revised, as conditioned by staff, with the revised 1 and 2, as Mr. Whitehead just gave us, along with condition 3, which limited the number of containers on site to 8.
So move.
Second.
Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I think we've discussed this a lot. So, hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote on this?
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Mr. Melasry,
Yes.
Ms. Gerlach,
Yes.
Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Doss,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the property and the vicinity.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
8 ayes.
All right, you've been approved as conditioned. Thank you all very much. Mr. Whitehead, will you call the next case for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The next and last case is agenda item number 6, docket BOA 2037, located at 2798 New Brunswick Road. The applicant is St. Charles Place LLC. The use district is the CMU3 Commercial Mixed Use District, and the request is a variance from 498A4 to allow the accessory use of a parking lot on a lot that contains a billboard.
Okay, is the applicant with us?
Mr.
Yes,
Wooldridge?
we are here. Yes, I'm here, and the owner is with me.
Okay, very good. If you'll sit tight, we're going to have Ms. Smith give us a brief staff report. All right, Ms. Smith, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Summer Smith of the Office of Planning and Development. If you follow along on the staff report, we're going to jump right to page 10, which has the zoning map. It's zone commercial mixed use 3. On the next page 11, you'll find the abutting land uses are commercial and vacant land. Pages 12 and 13, you'll see site photos. Page 15, you can see the site plan. The accessory parking would serve a restaurant located on an abutting lot to the east. The 3 single-family houses located on the abutting lot were model homes for residential development in East Shelby County. One of these former model homes is being renovated into a breakfast eatery and bar, while the other 2 are set to remain as vacant accessory structures for the time being. The restaurant is intended to cater to the 5 existing hotels in the immediate vicinity on the north side of New Brunswick Road. Consistency with Memphis 3.0 can be found on pages 17 and 18. The property is identified as high-intensity commercial and services on the future land use category map. The proposal is consistent with Memphis 3.0 because high-intensity commercial services are identified as auto-oriented areas, and the request is for additional parking to service a commercial use. In conclusion, which can be found on page 18, the applicant is seeking relief from paragraph 4.9.8A4 to allow the accessory use of parking on a lot that contains the principal use of an off-premise advertising sign, otherwise known as a billboard, The parking would serve a restaurant located on an abutting lot to the east. Paragraph 4.9.8A4 of the Unified Development Code does not allow for any lot that contains an off-premise sign to share its lot with any other principal use or an accessory use serving a principal use on an adjacent lot. Just a note that there is an existing trailer structure located on the site within the parcel that contains the off-premise sign, which, as proposed, is conditioned to be removed from the site. And further note that as conditioned in the approval of this variance, it shall not grant any rights to the off-premise sign on the property, which shall remain non-conforming. The granting of this variance will not cause substantial detriment to the public good, nor will it substantially impair the intent and purpose of an adopted plan or the code, nor will it be injurious to the neighborhood or general welfare, and it will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the development code. Staff recommends approval with conditions, which you can see on page 18 of the staff report. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Are there any questions of staff at this time? All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to the applicant. If the applicant could state their name and address or the representative for the record.
It's Wesley Woodridge with the Renaissance Group at 9700 Village Circle in Lakeland, Tennessee.
All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, if you want to tell us about what your thoughts are on this, Mr. Woodridge.
Well, we are renovating a vacant structure right now to put it back in the on the market, and we need the additional parking for the use for the restaurant and the bar that's coming in. Really, it's to keep parking off the road and out of the public right of way. We feel like it's a good use for the property, a safe use, and we really request approval.
Okay, what is going on? I'm just looking at the site plan zoomed in. The other two model homes, are they still there, or what's going on that side of the property?
The model homes are still there. They're vacant at the moment. There are plans sometime in the future to do something with one of them if the breakfast eatery and the bar are successful here. They look to maybe turning it into a more of an event center that can be leased by the hotels for conferences and different things, and catered by the restaurant.
Okay. Did y'all look at putting parking over closer to there so you had parking on both sides of the building instead of extending into the other, into the billboard property?
Truthfully, no, we did not. We were more, were asked to extend the parking where it's shown because it's just more convenient and we feel safer because it works with the front of the restaurant. It's just closer to the entrance.
Okay, so the restaurant is oriented so it fronts to the west. Is that right? Sort of.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Okay.
The entry and all.
Okay, I couldn't tell that before, so that makes sense. Are there any other questions of the applicant? Okay, then I'll ask, is there any opposition to this case?
Well, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I don't know if met board members or not, but this is Mary
Okay.
Baker. I asked that it be pulled off from consent because I would like to speak against it as a board member. I plan to vote against it, and I'd like to explain to the rest of the board why I feel like it shouldn't be approved.
Go ahead.
So when
Baker? Is Ms. Baker still with us? Mr. Whitehead?
I have her still on the call. Mary, can you hear us? Well, we can buy some time, Mr. Chairman, because I think her comments would probably be more appropriate in the
discussion.
Yeah. So we can buy at least
Okay.
2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah. So at this point, let's see if we can get a motion to approve BOA 20-37 as conditioned by staff.
So moved, John Jackson.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, being moved and seconded. Is Ms. Baker back with us yet? Hey, Mr. Whitehead, do you think there's a clear, I don't know if I'm not sure what's going on. Do you think we could have her call back in? Because I definitely know she wants to make a comment, and I'd hate to move beyond her on that.
Right. It might be a connection issue. Mary, if you can hear us.
You can hang up and try again?
Yeah. Oh, wait. She's called from a different number. Let me.
Oh, perfect.
Oh. Mary, what's happening to you is what happened to Madeline when she first called. So hang up one more time and call back. Okay. Okay.
While we're waiting on her, are there any other comments right now from the board? Hearing none, we'll wait on Ms. Baker.
Mr. Chairman, Jackson?
Yes, sir, Mr. Jackson.
I have a comment, but not on this particular case. So when we finish this case, I have a request to ask of staff regarding a previous case that was heard, I believe, a part of this year.
Okay, yes. We will make sure and address that, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Whitehead, could you tell that she hung up and is trying to get back in?
I'm here. Can you not hear me?
Oh, we can now, Mary. This is the first I've heard from you. We're ready for, good. Hey, we're ready for your comments, okay?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it very much. As I
No
said,
problem.
I'm going to vote against this application, and I wanted to explain why I think this application should not be approved. To begin with, I believe it violates the UDC regulations that govern approval of a variance by the Board of Adjustment. The justification given in the application and in the staff report is the narrowness of the lot where the billboard is located. While the lot is narrow in comparison with other lots in this area, this characteristic is self-created by the applicant. And you can see how this condition was self-created by looking at the subdivision on page 4 of the staff report. So I don't think this variance meets the requirements in Article 9.22.6 of the UDC, which states that the Board of Adjustment must make the finding the unusual characteristic is not the result of any deliberate action by the owner. Second, the UDC regulations also state that the Board of Adjustment must make the finding that a variance may be granted without that a variance that is granted must be without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the purpose and intent of the UDC. And I don't find that to be the case with this variance request. Approving variances to the UDC regulations to allow accessory parking on the same lot with a billboard sets the precedent for other similar requests to come forward. If extension of accessory parking is regularly approved by a BOA variance, the next step will be requested variances to permit new billboards located in existing parking lots. In fact, this has already happened in a parking lot at the Marriott Hotel located at I-240 in Poplar. That new billboard there, relatively new, was approved in error by the Office of Construction Code Enforcement following this same reasoning. I believe, and I believe that section that is requested to be varied in this case, and Mr. Whitehead, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I believe that that is the very section that was added to the UDC when there was so much uproar over the fact that this Marriott billboard went in that way, and the reasoning was that if you can have accessory parking extended under an existing board, why can't you have a new board in an existing parking lot? So bottom line to this, I just think that these kind of decisions essentially throw out the regulations that we have in place to prevent proliferation of billboards along our interstate highways. And I believe the Memphis City Council is the board who has the authority to amend the UDC regulations governing billboards. The UDC should not be amended through approval of variance applications. And I fear that if this gets started, and particularly the chairman so rightly pointed out that it may not be the most convenient parking, but they could put the parking further down to the south and avoid this unnecessary variance to a provision that was just added to the UDC not for trying to get some control over the proliferation of billboards. So I'm going to vote against this, and I just think that it doesn't conform with the regulations, and I would love it if other board members would vote against it too for that reason. And I appreciate you listening to me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baker. Are there any other thoughts and comments, questions of staff or anything? All right, hearing none, I assume you guys are ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Baker?
No.
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Doss?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Malazari?
Yes.
Ms. Vice Chair?
Yes, I found that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met. and will not be unduly detrimental to the property in the vicinity.
Ms. Scarlock.
No.
And Mr. Chairman.
No.
4 ayes, 4 nays, that fails.
Motion fails. Thank you, gentlemen. Hopefully you can figure out a better way to do your parking that doesn't involve that billboard lot. Mr. Whitehead, well, before, do you have any announcements? And I think that Mr. Jackson would like to bring up some old business.
My only announcement is trying to predict the future here. The executive order signed by Governor Lee that allows for telephonic open meetings expires June 30th. He may or may not extend that. If he does not extend it, but yet the health department, the local health department, the city mayor and the county mayor have some sort of social distancing requirements still in place, our July meeting could involve a situation in which we meet in person, but we accept testimony telephonically. I say that only because the city council chambers, which is really the space that I think we need to truly go to a in-person meeting, is under renovations until October. So again, we'll jump off that bridge on June 30th, but I wanted to put that out there because I know a couple board members have asked me.
Okay, very good. Mr. Jackson, would you like to bring up your old business, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I'm looking for two things. One, where do we stand on the previous cases that involved Pierce and the, for lack of better words, not landfill, but filling in of the gravel pits? Where do we stand on both of those cases that were pending?
Mr. Jackson, to my knowledge, both of the stop work orders are still in place. I last checked with construction code enforcement probably about 2 months ago. It was before we started living in this new reality. I can check with them again. I drove by the site probably a month ago and noticed what I thought was mulching operations, but upon visiting the aerial map and speaking with Mr. Penzis, we realized that is a site to the northwest of Perimeter Mall, not the northeast, which is where these two sites are. But I can make sure that the stop work order, we can have an inspector inspect just to make sure the stop work order is still being adhered to.
Okay. And do we know the status of their submittals of information that we requested from them? Have they updated OPD with that?
On Mr. Pierce, last time I spoke with Mr. Penzis, if you recall, he was the staff planner on both of these. He said that he had gotten everything but the soil, where am I from? Arkansas? Soil bearings. Sorry, Madeline. But I can follow up with Jeffrey on that. And then Mr. Farrell, if you recall, the last time we talked to Cindy about him, he had had a stroke. And so I don't know if anyone of his representatives or affiliates is running that operation for him. But we can confirm on both of those. And how about this? We'll give a report this time next month. Because we know we're not going to hear these cases this time next month because the deadline just passed and these were not part of those. So I guess the real answer is if there's a stop work in place and we're all frozen, that's 80% okay. It's not 100% okay because obviously leaving it as is not an option. I guess my only response to that is TDEC does regulate these uses, and I want to say their fining, I hope that I can say their fining capabilities are a lot better than ours. Because it takes a lot for us to get a General Sessions Court to fine $50 a day.
Yes, sir. And here's the last question I have on a previous project. And I'm sure a lot of the board members will remember this. This was the Lowe's Hotel project when we granted them a variance. One of the things that I specifically asked of their chairman as part, I believe, of the conditions of approving that variance was that they would have some type of historic aspect associated with the development of that project that dealt with the Martin Luther King historical march that took place in Civic Center Plaza. And my memory serves me very well on this, the chairman standing up saying that definitely they would do that as part of the conditions. To date, I believe I have seen the drawings that do not reflect that, and they are looking to move forward with construction. I would ask that we as OPD Board of Adjustments look into that to determine where they stand on meeting that variance requirement.
We can do that, but as we transition to a more digital platform, we rely mostly on my memory, which is not 100%, as no human memory is. But I do not recall this case. We're talking about the Lowe's Hotel here at Adams in Maine, right?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Oh, Jeffrey has helped me. Yes, it went to the Land Use Control Board. You were serving as an alternate. So it was a Land Use Control Board matter. Nevertheless, we'll check into that. No. So my memory was correct. It did not go to my point is it didn't go to the BOA. It went to the LUCB. But we'll check into that nevertheless.
Okay. All right, and I'll check into that whether it was LUCB or BOA, but I could have sworn it was BOA.
Yeah, I don't remember it either, John.
Yeah, this is Carson. I think it might have been Land Use Control Board, John, because I think you and I both were serving as alternates that month.
Okay. All right.
But I remember exactly what you remember, that he stood up and guaranteed that he'd do that.
Yes. All right. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Great. Mr. Jackson, any other comments before we adjourn? All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.